understand how other companies are doing it. But basically, you're going to take your net sales and make comparisons as percents, right? You're going to divide the number of net sales by whatever you want to compare it to. So you could do this by your electric bill. You could do this by your insurance bill. You could do this by the goods sold. You could do this by anything that you possibly want. But it's always going to be based off your net sales. The two most important things that they probably do on this are the gross profit margin and the net profit margin. So, am I making money doing what we're doing as a business? And if I'm not, then we have to make an adjustment. Maybe it's only one part of my business. And maybe I have several different, what do I want to say? I don't want to use the word category necessarily. Components of my business. And Justice is in charge of one, Carter's in charge of the other, and Derek's in charge of the other. Well, everybody's doing their part except for Carter. Okay? So is it Carter's fault, or is it him being a manager of his 8 people, is it their fault? Right? Does Carter not show up for work? Does his people not show up for work? Does he not hold his people accountable? That's what you'd have to figure out. But you could use these kind of things as help for them. And you're going to make your comparisons from year in and year out. So, if you look on page 519, again, like I said, this isn't real difficult. Notice letter A. It says a vacuum cleaner dealership's net sales were $238,000 last year. Its operating expenses for the same period were $17,000. What were the operating expenses as a percent of net sales? So they're just basically saying what percent of your business were your operating sales or expenses compared to your net sales. So anytime that I'm going to find a percent in this manner, I'm always going to divide what number by what number. The smaller number essentially by the bigger number. So in this one right here is the 17,000 number divided by the 238,000 number. And again, then I would get a decimal, take that decimal and move it 2 places to the left and or to the right and figure out what my percentage is. So if you stick that into your calculator, you get 7.4%. In B, it's just a little bit different. So in B, it says Cliver Telecommunications had net sales of $1.5 million, and the cost of goods sold were $1.3 million, or $1.03 million. Last year, the amounts were $1.4 and $960, respectively. So again, what is the difference between net sales and cost of goods sold? Well, the net sales is what I'm actually making. The cost of goods sold would be what I had to produce or buy from somebody else so I could do my company. Okay, so when you're given both things in the problems, you have to take and subtract those two numbers first. So I'm going to take my net sales minus my cost of goods sold. So the 1.5 million minus the 1.03 million and get an answer. Then I'm going to take that amount. So basically that's saying whatever I have left there is the amount of net sales that I have. That's how much money we basically made. So my production then would be taking that number that we just found and dividing it by what? Which one do you think? The net sales or the cost of goods sold? It's always by the net sales, remember. So I'm going to take my answer, which was $556,000, and divide it by the 1.5 million again. So you get 0.3501. So basically what this is saying is my gross profit margin was 35%. That's pretty good, right? If you have any kind of gross profit margin, especially in today's day and age, you're probably making good money. All right? But now, so that would be the answer to the first part. And then you would have to do the same thing for the second numbers. And then when it says, is it rising or falling, you're just going to make a comparison. So the first one was 35%. The second one, if you would do the exact same process but use the other numbers, would have been 33.9%. And then you just subtract the two. All right, so you're just making a comparison and seeing if you're doing things right. Again, if you even have a decline in that percentage, probably not a huge deal, especially if you are comparing 1920 to 2021. But if you even had a slight decrease on one or the other, then that's where you would start looking into, hey, did we just have a really bad month? Why did we have that bad month? Was there a shipping problem? Was there a personnel problem? All those things. And so you can use these numbers in a variety of ways. Turn the page. Then the next part that you look at is the ratio analysis of income statements. So this is comparing items on your statement. So you're actually going and making straight comparisons. And this is usually termed as merchandise turnover rate, or the MTR. The number of times that you replace your stock in your business. So this is obviously going to vary a lot, depending on what kind of business you have, right? So their example in the book, if you ran a furniture business, would you expect to sell out of sofas continuously? Probably not, right? Your sofas would take a long time to probably go through your entire stock. But if you were running a grocery store, would you anticipate your milk going and selling out? Well, even if you didn't sell it out, then you'd have to get rid of it, right? So your turnover rate would be way different depending on what kind of business you're going to run. When you do this now, so you're looking for your turnover during a certain period. The period, again, could be a month, could be your quarterly, could be yearly. Again, you probably wouldn't do a yearly rotation period for your food. So you just have to make sure that you understand what you're doing. You can do this to your whole inventory or just individual parts of it. So maybe you want to just look at your milk. Maybe you just want to look at your sofas. Maybe you just want to look at certain areas or your entire stock as a whole. Okay, so the MTR, notice here, the cost of goods sold for period divided by the average merchandise inventory. So when you do this, you got to find your average inventory. How do I find my average of anything? Add them up and divide by however many we're talking about, right? So that's what we're going to do. Look at letter C. Rock Creek Stores had a beginning inventory on January 1st of $168,000. The ending inventory on December 31st was $155,000. The store's cost of goods sold for the year was $945,000. So notice, we got everything that we want. The cost of goods sold, and now we have to find our average merchandise. So we're going to take the first two numbers, $168,000, and add it to $155,000, and then divide by 2. So my average amount would have been $161,920. I take that number and I go back and I look at my overall cost of goods sold, which was $945,000, and divide it by that average number. So here, my turnover rate for, what was it? January, oh, this would have been, looks like a year, right? So their period was for a year. They turned over basically 5.8. Doesn't really say what their business was. It just says Rock Creek Stores. So if our turnover rate's only 5.8, we're probably having something big, right? Maybe cars, maybe boats, something like that. Okay, what? Some cows. Maybe cows. All right? Does that make sense? So you find your average of your merchandise, and then take that and divide it from the cost of goods sold. That's it. Sure. Okay? You better do this assignment.
I got a 4 school bag champion. What? Chad?
So you got a lot of time. Make sure you use your time. There you go. Bless you. Good times.
This one.
I'm already confused.
Oh, so go back to your little chart on page 519. So use your cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold. And take that compared to your net sales. And just divide them.
Compared to, do I have to add this year and last year together, or?
Nope. If it just said, well, it depends on what it says.
How do you find the percent if it doesn't tell you?
So you multiply 46 times 62.5?
Oh, well, they're the same. I'm just kidding.
Swear, I'll be saying something.
No.
You just take the average of the.
Go back. Turn it back.
So you just divide them? I don't have a phone or a calculator.
You don't have.
You said all calculated.
You gotta go back and use your inventory, income statement, it says.
That little chart.
So turn way back to page 513.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot of pages.
So now, look what they say to you. Cost of goods sold, what number is that in your little chart?
196,920.
Cost of goods sold.
Yeah. To be letter C.
That would be letter C.
46,266.
No. You're using the one on the right.
Oh, right.
Look at the problem and read the actual problem.
I see it.
It says used for Cepeda manufacturing income statement. So what's my cost of goods sold?
141,917.
What's my net sales?
96,4.
So what do I do with those two numbers? If I want a percent, I'm gonna divide, and I'm gonna divide which one by which one? Perfect, punch it into your calculator. That's what you're gonna do for each one of those then. You're always use the 196,000. 196,000.
What is this Cepeda question?
No, Cepeda, go back to 513. Use that green chart on page 513.
So what's the answer?
Right there, the one on the right.